Do I always get okay? Okay. Hello and good evening, everyone. I call this public meeting of the North Clackamas School District Board of Directors to order on Thursday, October 10th at 6:34 p.m. Welcome. And I see that we have some guests and visitors joining us. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. I would like to remind our community that the purpose of our board meetings is to conduct the business of the district first, and for everyone to learn about the district in a safe and productive manner. So we are going to get started this evening with community comments, and I believe we have one person that is signed up to make comment. So I will read this before they come up. Community comments are an opportunity for our community to share their ideas and opinions with the board. Input is welcome and valued. It is our duty to keep it safe and respectful for everyone, students, staff, and our community. This is not a time for discussion or debate. If you have materials for the board, please give them to the board secretary, who will distribute them to the board members after the meeting. Letters to the board are always welcome, and each of us reads the input. Requests for information should be requested as outlined in policy KBA-AR. Any individual desiring to speak will have indicated their desire prior to the board meeting. An individual with a disability will be given an equal opportunity to participate in board meetings. This may include someone speaking on their behalf if their disability or other medical need limits their ability to attend in person. And board policy also speaks to accommodations available. A speaker will be required to give their name, city of residence, and group, if any, that is represented. If there are more patrons desiring to present comments than time allotted, the board chair has the authority to reduce the presentation time for individual speakers or institute a prioritization process with first priority to students and city of residence. Speakers may offer objective criticisms of district operations and programs that are of a concern to them. The board is restricted from hearing and will not consider complaints regarding any individual district staff member or any person connected with the district. Comments that make a staff member identifiable to the public, even without their specific name, violate this policy. As an organization centered around youth and their positive development, all speakers will model respectful public comment and be mindful of civil discourse. And so now I welcome Nicole Perry to the dais to give your testimony. Welcome, and please state again for the record your name, city of residence, group if any, and then the clock will begin. Let's make sure the mic is on the green.
Brighter green.
Yeah,
Hello.
great.
Okay. My name is Nicole Perry. I am the mom of a 2023 district graduate, and I have a sophomore in high school currently. And I am also the Safe Routes to School coordinator for the area. So I just wanted to say hello and happy fall, and thank you for your service on the board. And then just update you, as I have before, on happenings. So last year I talked about a Rex Putnam action plan, which is being finalized, and a lot of the signage around that area on Rothy Road got updated by Clackamas County through that process. And we are looking to do action plan updates at schools, and I just wanted to inform you of that. And I'll be reaching out and engaging with principals and communities about that. My ideas are Mount Scott, Whitcomb, and Linwood Sojourner, but we'll see what comes to fruition. Again, I just want to make you all aware and the community that there's a lot of free education out there for kids, bicycle and pedestrian education, both during the school day and outside of it. There is an Oregon Friendly Driver program, again, a free program that's a short class online or in person that teaches drivers how to behave around walkers, bikers, and all road users. This recently became certifiable for school bus drivers, so that's a great thing they can get a certificate for. Additionally, House Bill 3014, I'm pretty sure that's the number, passed recently, and that can be used to fund crossing guards. It has a lot to do with the supplemental plan for the transportation district, and I've been talking with them about how that process would look. It's new, so, but also an exciting way to compensate folks for that important job, because sometimes it's not being done because there's no funding or stipends for either volunteers or staff that could do that. Right now, it's International Walk and Roll to School time. So yesterday, Bilquist had a big celebration. This morning, Happy Valley had a great celebration. There were over 150 kids. I think I counted 200 students, but just a great community building event. And I heard it reduced the traffic in that parking lot about 75% this morning. So again, for the broader community, there's still time in October to celebrate Walk and Roll Day, and there's a lot of year-round events to celebrate Ruby Bridges, to celebrate winter walking to school, to celebrate Earth Month, and then May is always a great month to encourage the activities. So please get in touch with the Clackamas County Safe Routes to School program if you have any questions, or if anyone listening or out there in the North Clackamas District wants to do some celebrating, education, and just have some fun encouraging kids to be active. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that wraps up our community comments for this evening. And I just also want to really appreciate just the work of the Safe Routes to School program. And I've been seeing in my social media lately the jogathons, the rollathons, the move-a-thons. There's been a lot of a-thons happening this week with all the kiddos going outside and using just really active ways of getting to school besides cars. So it's been really great to see that. So now we are going to move forward with our native land acknowledgement. Vice Chair Benaloga, will you lead the acknowledgement?
Oh, maybe I'm not. Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm covering it up. All right. We acknowledge the land on which we sit and which we call the North Clackamas School District rests on the traditional and indigenous lands and village sites of the native peoples of the Kalapuya, Chinook, Molalla, and the Clackamas. We take this opportunity to offer gratitude for the ability to learn, work, and be a community on this land. And we offer thanks to the original caretakers of this region. We recognize the historic policies of colonization, genocide, relocation, and assimilation that affected Indigenous and Native families, both past and present, and that will affect those in the future, and honor the resilience and revitalization of our Indigenous and Native communities. We pay our respects to the elders, both past and present, who have been the stewards of this land throughout the generations.
Thank you. And now I will have Director McVeigh. Will you lead the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Thank you, Board. And before we get into minutes, I also want to acknowledge and say that this coming Monday is Indigenous Peoples Day. And so it's a federally recognized holiday and just really an opportunity for all of us to celebrate just the incredible resilience of our Native and Indigenous communities here and beyond. So just wanted to mention that. Next up, we have our minutes of the September 2024 meeting. So Board, in the packet, you will find the minutes of our School District Board of Directors. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Chair, I move board approval of the minutes from September 26, 2024 school board meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Bowers, second.
Thank you. This is properly moved by Vice Chair Benaloga and seconded by Director Bauer. Is there a discussion? Okay, seeing none, I call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. And I do believe Director Kemp is online, and
Aye.
I want to make sure he said aye. Okay, great, thank you. All those that oppose, please say no. Okay, the motion passes with a vote of 6-0. Thank you. Next, we have consent agenda. So again, in the board packet, you will find our consent agenda for this evening's meeting. The items on the consent agenda include employment changes. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? And please remember to read the items that are included.
Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda, which includes the item employment changes.
McVeigh, second.
Okay, it's properly moved by Director Wachter and seconded by Director McVeigh. Is there a discussion? Okay, I call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those that oppose, please say no. And Director Kemp is an aye. Okay, the motion passes with a vote of 6-0. Thank you, board. And we're gonna move along. So next on the agenda is our North Clackamas Education Association's featured educator. We're so excited to feature our educator, and now I welcome our NCEA Vice President, Michelle Arco. Welcome. I think it needs to be turned on.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Got it. Thank you, everybody. Middle school is an interesting place. And when I talk to people who, I tell them, what I do teaching middle school, they always say, oh. And then they talk to me about their experience in middle school. And most of them end up by saying, it's not a time I would really choose to repeat in my life. And here tonight, I'm here to talk to you about our featured educator, who is someone who has spent a great deal of time teaching our students here in this district, both at Rao Middle School and then also before that at the elementary school level. And her history in this district runs very, very deep, going from parents to grandparents and her own children here in this district. And so I'm very excited to talk to you about Christine Salisbury, who has spent the last 11 years running our web program at Rao Middle School. WEB program stands for Where Everyone Belongs, and it's an opportunity for students to really, when the moment they walk in the door, feel like they have an advocate and someone who is standing for them. And the way that that works is we have students who participate in the program as incoming sixth graders, and then they get to run the program as eighth graders and really get to mentor other students coming in as sixth graders. And so you can imagine these kids coming in as sixth graders, wide-eyed, like kind of scared, really nervous, coming in to middle school and having someone who's there, again, as an advocate for them, someone who has done it, is finishing their last year as a middle schooler, ready to move on to the high school, who is here to reassure them and say, everything's going to be okay. This is a place here at Rao where you belong. They get about 60 students together, and they spend a few days of their summer really learning how to run the program, how to do this day. They learn how to manage behavior. They learn how to do icebreakers. They learn how to run activities, and they learn who their kids are, and they get to know them during that day, and they also get an opportunity to really connect with them throughout the year and check in, how are things going? And they play games, they practice getting lunch, they meet their staff, and organizing 60 middle schoolers is not an easy thing to do, especially during summer. And Christine takes her summer time to really plan for this and think about what is the best way to do this, and then spend 2 to 3 days actually like mentoring them and giving them the opportunity to learn these skills so that they can be there and be present for our 6th grade students. And absolutely deserves both the honor and praise for bringing this awesome day to life. And the person who nominated her said Rao would not be Rao without her there. So I want to turn it over to her to speak a bit about her work.
I think the most important part of the program is its impact on both our 6th graders and our 8th graders. As you said, the welcome that the 6th graders feel on that first day is also rolled over into our families and our community. The feedback from parents is, I was so worried about this day, and my student came home excited and happy. And so for the 6th graders, they walk in our gym, and if you've ever been there when we're doing this, a few people might have been there. They walk in and it's pretty crazy because there's 8th graders high-fiving them, and it's music's playing, and they have to get a name tag, and it's by their last name first, and they don't know that. They're like, what? I have to find my last name. But we eventually get them seated, and we have an assembly, and then they meet up with their 8th graders, and they have a great day. The 8th graders, this impacts them because I think there's kids, it's called Where Everybody Belongs. I've never turned an 8th grader down who asked to do this program. One year pre-pandemic, I had 100 8th graders fill out the application, 78 of them completing the training with me. So we survived the pandemic, which is awesome. But I see 8th graders who are quiet, reserved kids say, this is something I can do and be part of my school, but I don't have to be in the spotlight in the way like maybe the Shamrock News is, you know. I've seen 8th graders, I'm thinking of a particular boy this year who was my 6th grader a couple of years ago, and that guy was all over the place with his mask and his bandit thing going on, and he came out to Webb and he was fabulous. And so I see it as a place of growth for lots of kids who maybe don't see that in themselves until they try it. So that's why I think it impacts our community so much. And I think it makes, and I already have 6th graders saying, I'm going to do that with you in 8th grade. So it's been very impactful, 11 years. I'm trying to find some young, energetic person to take it over. This year I did get one of our younger teachers to work with me, and I'm trying to mentor him. But our formal trainings that teachers can be sent to do this, I was sent years ago by Jessica Sun, one of our principals. So I would encourage that this program be looked at as something that our middle schools could implement, or we could send people to learn. I was alone at the training, and most schools had a committee. So anyway, it's been an amazing thing for me, and I feel blessed that I get to do it. It energizes me every year as I start the school year when I see all this positivity coming out of our kids. So I think that's enough.
Thank you so much. Just what a wonderful, wonderful story, wonderful background, and just energy and experience that you bring, Christine. So thank you so much for not only serving our students in our schools, but really radiating that effect out into the community, you know, because these middle schoolers are going to become adults. And so, but, you know, the middle school years are so, so important. I remember being a middle schooler, and also just that transition it's just very critical to have mentorship and to have just adults in your life who, you know, believe in you and who are there to help guide you. So thank you for your dedication and your work. And I want to open it up to other board members. If you have any reflections or praises to Christine, this is really the chance. Yeah.
Thank you, Christine, for that really important work. And another kudo for Rao Middle School. There's been 2 or 3 things that, you know, there was something in the news this week about all the good work they're doing. And you guys are a great team, and congratulations for all the great work you're doing. Thank you for your passion for kids.
Our RAU staff is amazing. Their hearts, our hearts are so big for kids, and you have to have that in that building. So thank you.
Great. Well, thank you again for joining us during an evening of a pretty long school day, I'm sure. I hope you get some great rest this evening. And thank you again for being here, both you and Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yay! Good hand. Awesome. Well, next up, we have a presentation by the Clackamas High School group, and I would like to welcome now our Executive Director of Secondary Programs, Petra Collin, who will introduce our esteemed guests.
Good evening, directors. I am so proud to present to you Clackamas High School this evening. Principal Alyssa Engel is right behind me, and she's got a great team to introduce, so I will let them take it away.
Great, thank you. And we're so glad that you all are here. Oh.
Perfect. Perfect. It's been a minute since I've been in front of the board. Good evening, Chair Wei and directors. Thank you for allowing us to be here. I'm Alyssa Engel, principal of Clackamas High School, and I am proud to have a fabulous team here with me tonight. So I've got Kim Street, assistant principal, Blythe Duffield, our dean of students, and Angela Uno, one of our fantastic, amazing teachers at Clackamas High School. So tonight we'll be presenting an update that highlights our key initiatives and goals. Thanks, Donna. All right, so starting with our mission. So this past August, our site council and our leadership team revisit our school mission. And what we really had the most conversation around was not only academic success, but really personal growth for each student. And really what this looks like, there's a lot packed into this small statement, but really relevant and empowering, challenging instruction. There was a lot of talk around that, building and supporting inclusive environments. And then we really talked a lot about how many communities our students belong to. And we want to support that because there's just so many. We couldn't even name all the ones that were happening at our school because students belong to many communities inside and outside of our schools. Thanks. All right, so we wanted to bring our mission to life. And so we have multiple vision statements at Clackamas, and I just present you with 3 right now. But each of our teams began the year by really looking at our mission and looking at the district's values. And each team wanted to make sure that they were really living that mission. And so they each came up with a statement that supported that. So I think I'm not going to read all of these, but you can just sort of glance through them. But they keep coming back to their mission because this is what we each want to ground ourselves in. Okay. All right. Well, you can see our shirts. I'm going to stand up here, team. Am I standing? So this is SICK, safe, included, and connected. We really needed a mantra, if you will, to simplify what our mission and vision was. And this is what our team came up with. So we sometimes wear our shirts. You'll hear us saying this in the hallways, in the classrooms, and our common areas. And they really represent the core values of Clackamas and our district. And I think it actually was Kim that popped into my office one day, and she was like, "Alyssa, I just heard a student overheard a student in the hallway say to a peer, 'That's sick.'" And the kid was like, "What are you talking about?" She goes, that was safe, included, and connected." So we know that they are hearing us, and just by and the student didn't even know, I think, Kim was around. So
I chased her down.
Oh, yeah.
Cards we give them if we see them do something that they can get like a treat from the student store. So I chased her down. I said, "No, it's freaky, but I've chased you because I heard you. I wanted to give you this card," and so I gave her the card. She was super excited. And so,
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the anecdotes that we know what we're doing is working. Donna, next. Okay, so just a quick overview of our school improvement plan, and we will go into a couple of these in more detail. But our first one, ninth grade teams. So this is our on track to graduate rate. And research says that students who complete their ninth grade year with at least 6 credits are on track and will graduate. So last year, our on-track graduate rate for the ninth graders was 91.4%. So we made a goal of this year of getting that to 95%. And so that again is based on credits attained. Our second school improvement plan is around belonging and connection. And again, this is tied to our mission and vision. And one piece of data that helps us measure this, there's a lot, but one thing we really look at is our Youth Truth Survey. And there's the question that we focused on that says, I really feel like part of the school's community. And this measure has been going up for us. So right now we're at the 54th percentile. And that means with Youth Truth, there's a nationwide survey that is taken, and we are in the 54th percentile. So there's there's students in schools below that and above that. But what I want to really highlight is that in 2021, our percentile for this question was 26%. In 22, it was 38%. In 2023, it was 51%. And last year, it's 54%. So we are really proud of the work we're doing to build community. And our focus this year is to get us up to the 60 percentile. And then our last goal is really looking at our attendance. And right now, if you average all of our attendance rate, it is at an 88.9%. We would like to see that go up to 91%. And in a few minutes, Kim is going to go into more detail about attendance. So I'm just going to leave that right now there, because I know we may have questions. Okay, all right. Setting you up. All right, so I would love to play this video for you, and to highlight this, there's a new group that a student leader brought to me at the end of last year. And this student, she sent me an email with a proposal, and basically I emailed her back and I said yes, but she said, oh no, I don't want a yes from you yet. I want you to watch my PowerPoint. I want you to listen to my proposal. And it was fantastic, and I do have copies of that if anybody ever wants to see them. But what ultimately she was looking at, she's a senior, is that she wanted to build more community across all of our affinity groups, our clubs, our student council. And so she proposed that leaders of each of those groups, clubs, affinity groups, meet with me and our leadership teacher once a month to connect with each other. So they know what each club is doing, what each affinity group is doing. We have a Google Classroom. They post on it so they can celebrate each other. It is fantastic. And so what I thought, we need a video, I need to show this. And so I didn't really tell them, but Brian McGrew and Curtis Long showed up on the morning of our meeting. And basically I said, I just want this off the cuff. I don't want you to practice. They're going to ask you a question, and I would just like you to respond to it. So I would like you to watch this video.
Ways that I feel part of the community would be sports in a school. Clubs also help bring this community spirit, school spirit. Just being part of different extracurriculars, programs, all of the arts, that's how I feel part of the school's community. So for me, student council is one of the ways that I'm really involved in our school, and I get to see a lot of different members of our student body and clubs and things like that, and I get to be a part of a lot of them, which is really lucky. So honestly, I'm really in a lot of collaboration with different clubs and groups. So yeah,
I feel like I'm part of the school's community when I am active in clubs like BSU. I am the president and going to are creating events for other people that look like me, making a space for where they feel safe and heard. That's how I feel like I'm part of the community, where I give back to the community, knowing that I can help other people. I really do feel like I'm part of my school's community through LSU and being the president and being able to lead people and get people to participate and volunteer and just going to school events and supporting anybody in sports and other clubs and just really showing my support to other people and getting other people to show that same support to clubs and my club and people in my community.
I feel part of it because of the students around where I go to dances and I feel everyone having so much fun like as a school, not as separate entities, and when I feel my spirit is at the most highest.
I feel like planning things like homecoming and just planning certain events where people feel included. Like right now I'm treasurer of BSU, co-president of Twin Up, a club I started that helps students with disabilities feel more included in our community. And I'm also trying to start an East African Student Association because I noticed that there were a lot of East Africans at the school, like especially the incoming freshmen. And just being able to create things like that and planning events that bring people together really helped me feel like I'm part of the school's community.
So I'm president of 4 clubs: Women in STEM, Science National Honor Society, Green Team, and then APISU. I started as a freshman, and over the time I've gotten to really know everyone, and I started to feel like everyone's big sister, and I just wanted to help everyone out. And I've grown really connected to this space and this community, and I can't wait to see where everyone ends up.
Really proud of those students. And the last student, Lydia, who just spoke, was the one that brought me the proposal. So she's very, very connected, and she really wants to leave a legacy, as do all of the students. So I'm going to turn this over to Kim right now, and she's going to talk about our attendance goal.
Lucky me. So I think when you look at the slide, this isn't something we're necessarily boasting about or excited about, but it is the reality of what we're looking at. And one of the things we want to talk about or look at is pre-COVID and post-COVID and kind of what we're facing and what we're sort of realizing about our demographics and learn how we need to focus to increase attendance for all students, but also some very specific demographics of students. So pre-COVID, regular attendees, just so I can kind of explain some vocabulary, these are students who attended 90% or more of the time, meaning they missed less than 2 days a month of school, essentially is what 90% or better is. So at pre-COVID, 88% of our students was attending 90% of the time or more. Now, this last school year, we're down to 66%. You can see there's just been a digress of attendance. And with many people, I think I'm beating my head against the wall to trying to figure out the why, and I haven't found any magic solutions or causes or through lines, but I do think that there are some changes that have occurred since COVID. I think and we're also starting to see some improvements in specific areas since COVID. So when I talk about regular attendees, 90% or more attendance, chronic absentee rates are anybody that's less than 90%. So we're missing 2 or more days a month. Are there any questions on that part? Okay. So when we talk about attendance and we looked at our specific populations, 2 populations that really popped up as students that struggled last year were our Hispanic population, where they had a 50% chronic absenteeism rate, as well as our non-binary students. So those were 2 areas that we really needed to specifically focus on. And so we have really looked at some targeted interventions. We have a thriving LSU club this year. We have new advisors. We had a record number of students show up to our LSU affinity space in their first meeting. And so I think just really engaging that community. We have Juntos that we're working with to engage the community at large, to just bring our Hispanic community into Clackamas High School. And I think we're starting to see some baby steps amongst that community. For our non-binary students and really our LGBTQ plus students all around, their data isn't wonderful. So our QSU, or Queer Student Union, has kind of been struggling to get off the ground. And so myself and our social worker did a listening session with kids just to come and tell us, what do you need? What are you feeling? What is it like to be a student at Clackamas High School in the identity that you are? And so that was really eye-opening for us. And I think we're going to do a lot of work around that and try and engage more students in that space, because we know there are more kids that identify that way in our school based on our data that we just aren't reaching in those spaces. So that's some work to be done. Attendance in general, targeted interventions, I think Getting kids back to school. I think we have to dig out of COVID. I think in COVID, we created spaces where kids didn't need to be present in school to be successful. We had Google Classroom, we had assessments online. We wanted to make it very accessible for all students. I think we're still digging out of that. So I think really leaning into some tier one interventions with our high five strategies in the classroom, where we're looking at where collaborative learning really is about how we assess students working together in the classroom, that our assessments are around that. And then the tier two interventions are those kids that can't come to school for some legitimate reason. They have mental health struggles, they have housing insecurity, right? Those kids exist. There are a large portion of our students that aren't attending as well, that we have ways for them to be successful as well. But we really want to focus on kids being in class to be successful, to rebuild that need to be there. And then I think tier three students are students that are genuinely struggling with severe addiction issues, mental health issues, housing insecurity. We have what's called Care Team, where we bring kids to the table, and it's counselors, our social worker, our school psychologist. Sometimes our McKinney-Vento representatives are there. Myself and Blythe run that group, and we just talk about what sort of resources can we provide these kids. And last year we had about, I think, 37 kids that we talked about on Care Team, and 28 of those were chronically absent. About 15 of those ended up receiving mental health services through that team. And so I think just really finding ways to catch kids when they're not attending. We have an attendance support form that we ask teachers to fill out if kids are not showing up in their classes, because I think we need just to make the sieves a lot smaller, right? Where there's holes, kids fall through and we don't find them. And if we can make those sieves smaller with systems, I think we can really target attendance and get kids back in school. I'm next. This I am kind of proud of. So we are one of the pilot schools for restorative practices school-wide at Clackamas High School, and we are in our second year of implementation of this. And essentially what this is, and it's something that I think since I walked in the door at Clackamas I've been working on, but now we're really focusing with staff, is shifting the mindset of how do we respond to student behavior. And so we're really shifting from that punitive view to the restorative view, and moving from a place of compliance and consequence to inquiry and intervention, right? If we can't understand the why around a student's behavior, then we do not know how to change that student's behavior. And consequences have not proven to change student behavior, but interventions can, because interventions are indicative to what the student needs, not necessarily what the school needs. So we're really shifting how we respond to behavior. We're shifting away from exclusionary practices, and we're shifting into more of like a restorative process with teachers, with students, with families, and really looking at where is the harm and how do we repair that harm, and how do we make you still feel welcome in this community even if you were the one that created the harm, versus excluding you from this community because you did so. So not to say that we don't ever use exclusionary practices. If there's a safety concern, then obviously, or a district policy that plays into that, then we still occasionally use those, but I would say it's far, far, far less than we ever were before at Clackamas High School. So just really working with staff, how do we respond to students when misbehavior occurs in a way that feels that we really want to understand why they're doing what they're doing, and then how do we work together to make a plan moving forward. And Angela's going to talk a little bit more about what that looks like in the classroom setting, and this is a little bit more what it looks like in the student support setting.
I can go to the next slide. I teach college and career, and from the classroom perspective, I see it as the pre-work. So by the time a student sees Kim or Blythe, I often say that's more moving towards the after, although they do pre-work obviously as well. But in the classroom, we have circles. So one of the things that I love about circles is creating connections with students, and students connecting with other students. Circles is a great opportunity for a teacher and other students to hear from every single person. Part of a circle is that every single student goes in a circle and gets to speak. And it is so important, I think, for all teachers to hear every single one of their students' voices every single day. And so there's different ways that you can use circles. Community building is the easy one where you just share about yourself, but then you can ramp it up and make it a little bit harder, add some content in there. And then I've even used conflict resolution when I noticed that a classroom wasn't feeling right and the expectations weren't being communicated. We talked about the expectations. We talked about why we weren't following the expectations. And then after that community circle, as the conflict resolution circle happened, you could feel a difference and a shift in the room of, okay, now we know why these things are happening. Let's be solutions oriented with our classroom. And then we also have restorative chats, which is a second strategy. And we talked about with our teachers that you can't have restorative chats until you do the pre-work of the circles. You have to have the connections with your students before you have harder conversations that might be one-on-one conversations with a teacher to a student or a student to a student of what's going on. So it might be as simple as, hey, I noticed that you've come in tardy more than 2 times. Tell me what's going on. And it's no longer just you're tardy, you're in trouble, we're gonna mark you, and that's it. It's the second step. And often as a teacher, what I've noticed is you find out so much more, and it allows for empathy both ways of the student saying, oh, okay, my teacher cares about me and I want to be vulnerable and share with them. At the same time, the teacher feels empathy too of, okay, they're not just tardy because they hate this class. They're tardy because they're trying to drop off their brother at the local elementary school before they get here or something like that. So overall, as a teacher, I've seen a lot of improvement in behavior, and also just I enjoy coming to school and getting to have these deep connections with students. So, and it's awesome to see, especially in the circles, the shyest kid be the one that talks the most during a circle. It's just that like you just see them bloom. So yeah, that's how I see restorative practices in the classroom.
Thank you. All right. Okay, so just a little bit on our instructional focus. So district-wide, we're working on our high five strategies, and collaboration and feedback is still what we come back to, because we know that research says that this is what is going to get kids farther along in their academics, more connected to each other. And I know that I love to put pictures and slides. And so this was just one day. It took me 10 minutes. I popped into several classrooms, and this is what they were doing. You've got some kids in a math classroom and I had to tell them when I went in, I got my phone out. But so, and they laugh but this is what's happening. They were up. All of our math teachers have bought these whiteboards that go on the wall. So frequently you'll see students up, really wrestling with some things. In fact, that day I heard the teacher say, no other class has gotten this yet, and I want to know if anybody in here, and they were in it. So it's just fantastic to see them up out of their seats, really talking to each other. They're giving each other feedback. It's not just the teacher giving the students feedback. So we're seeing a lot of student voice. And then the middle picture, I think that was, trying to remember what classroom that was. But yeah, they were really engaged and talking with each other. So it was just fun. It's fun to see them. And the other one, they're working on another, I think, a math project too. So out in the hallways, you see it in the classrooms. It's just super fantastic. All right. And then what I also want to highlight is this has been a goal of ours for the past few years. And the quote we received at the end of last year, this is from Equal Opportunity Schools, who we worked with for a number of years. And I'm actually going to read this one out loud. I wanted to send you a special bravo as you are continuing to add students of color to AP after 6 years of partnership. Often at this point in the partnership, we hope to see sustained enrollments. Well done continuing to work to close the gap. So I showed that to our AP coordinator, our AP teachers, and everybody else who supports, because you can see, I think most of so the blue highlight is last fall, what students were in the AP classes. And then when we forecasted in the spring, those are the numbers that are in the classes this year. And so all of them except for one have gone up. And I think the first graph, there's a difference of 7 students. So this was just from last year. We've continued to grow. If you'd move to the next slide. So what I want to highlight about, it's not just about getting students into AP courses, it's keeping them there, because it's easy to just tell them, sign up, but you've got to keep them there and you have to support them. So we have an AP coordinator, and we also meet about once a month with our AP teachers, and we look at how students are doing. We talk about alignment across the group. We have peer tutors. Our AP coordinator meets with students. We meet with families. We have an AP night every year. And we just want to make sure that we are really supporting the students as they get there. A lot of times these are students that have never had an AP course. And so we're trying to get them in as freshmen and just build it from there. So we are also proud of our AP capstone diploma. So that's sort of like IB. And last year we had 10 students who were awarded the AP Capstone Diploma. This year we're on track to have 14 students receive that. And what that means is that they take AP Research and AP Seminar, and those are very inquiry-based, lots of literature, lots of writing, lots of projects, lots of speaking. And they have to turn in a portfolio for each of those courses. And they usually do one as a sophomore or junior, the other one as a junior or senior. They have to receive a 3 or higher in both of their courses. And then they also have to take 4 other AP courses and receive a 3 or higher score on an AP exam. So it's pretty prestigious to get this. Our AVID students are working on going into AP Seminar. So we're talking with our freshmen and sophomore teachers. We learned this from Nelson, and they're having a lot of success. And so we're just trying to find other ways to show students that they really can do this. And I've watched several presentations. If any of you ever want to come and watch a presentation, let me know, because it is the best, one of the best days of the year. We do a lot of student family outreach. Like I said, our professional learning communities really talk, so we can make sure we're supporting each other. And just a lot of PD. We do a lot of PD around the collaboration, the feedback, just working on our core. All right. All right, and so our last slide, I just want to highlight, we have quite a few volunteer hours, 934 volunteer hours. And the gentleman in the bottom right is Cress Merrill. If you've never met him, he is at our school every day. Every day he shows up. Sometimes he's there all day. He works in our science classrooms. He gets labs ready. He helps the teachers. He helps the students. He's just a really bright light. And then the other pictures are of our Juntos program. And the picture in the bottom, my bottom left, is the families that graduated from the program last year. So those are the ones that showed up. They went on all the field trips to learn about higher ed. And that is just another amazing program that we support with OSU at our school. So I think that is our last slide. So questions?
Thank you so much. This was just really, really great presentation. And I just love hearing about all the updates and the work that you all are doing to help support our students and all of the different communities and identities that they have. So I want to give an opportunity for our board to ask questions. And I have several, but I wanted to have others go first. So gonna look around, and I know Director Kemp is also on the phone. So folks have questions? Director Bauer?
Thank you for a great presentation. And I loved your video. Those kids weren't prepared, and they came up with just great answers. You do have some great leaders there. And in the past, we've had students from Clackamas that went to Salem with us and presented to the board, and they just blew us all away. So you're doing great work. Thank you it's hard work too. I mean, I've visited a few times, not as much as I, like to, but I always see you guys out there. I see you all around, and it's any hours, you're there. And I can tell that you care. So thank you for all of that. It was a great presentation. I just had 2 areas. One, you talked about parents. And so is that information about attendance going home to the different groups that are really struggling? Are you having to put it in different languages? Why it's important for them to be at school? So that's my first question.
Yeah, so we've actually talked about it more with students than parents, and Kim can speak a little bit about this, but our affinity groups are actually helping us talk about attendance and how to get students there. So we've really started with staff this year, highlighting that as one of our goals, and then branching out into students, and we need to do more with parents.
And I understand at that age, they don't listen to their parents lots of times, but maybe they'll listen to their friend's parent. You know?
Well, I will. Yeah,
my son was better at that.
I will highlight one thing. Our attendance admin assistant last year was phenomenal, and she's now my main admin assistant in the front office now. But last year, she would notice that a student might be gone for 4 or 5 days. So she would call the family. She actually provided a lot of information from those phone calls to the care team. So that is one area I don't want to be remiss in not mentioning, because that was huge. She connected with those families that weren't there, was getting a lot of information. Then she started attending our care team meetings. So that is one way that we are connecting.
Yeah. And then I still got confused in the numbers, and I get stuck on numbers. On the attendance, your goal was end of 24-25 annual attendance rate will increase from 88.9 to 91. But then when I look at data that you had earlier for 23-24, it's 66. What am I missing? It's a definition, I know. And I think Shay tried to explain this to me earlier, and it didn't stick. So if you could go over it again, I appreciate it.
I'm going to do my best here because it's numbers and it's math, and that was never I'm not a math person yet, Alyssa, yet.
Oh,
It's
everyone
48.
is a
I don't think it's
math
happening.
person.
But, so
Right.
So the 88.9%, that's our overall annual attendance rate. So that's all students. The 66% is the percentage of students who attended 90% or more of the time.
Written down.
And so the 88 is encompassing all students regardless of their attendance rate. And the 66% is those who were 90% or better in their attendance.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Advice for Benaloga?
Thank you. And thanks so much for a great presentation and for sharing the information about your leadership kids. I think that's wonderful. And I can tell that you're all have a lot of energy at Clackamas, and I think that's wonderful. And thank you for, talking about attendance. It's a tough one. And it's not as, for some families, it's not as simple as my kid doesn't enjoy school. And for some families, it is that simple, but it really is about making those connections and figuring out what the barriers are. Thank you for sharing some data because we love that. Like to hear the data on not only who's going to school, but who's not going to school. I think that's really important. And thank you for the outreach to make an environment where hopefully the kids want to be there, and then working with your families to find out what those barriers are, so why the kids are not in class. So I just wanted to thank you for that. Thank you for the attendance information, and let's just keep working together and concentrating on those kids that are that 34% that is not in school 90% of the time. That's what we really need to be focusing on, and getting everybody in the door that we possibly can, while of course being cautious of illnesses and being careful, but we do want to do our best to get them in the door. But so thank you for making that a priority and for making the environment a school environment where your kids want to be there, because it seems like they're really feeling listened to and honored and respected. And that's one of the first barriers that we need to work on, is for all of our kids to feel connected and to want to be in the building. So thank you so much for working so hard on that. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. One of the things, data points I didn't point out was that our current 12th graders were 8th graders during COVID. And so I think every year after that, they're a little bit farther removed from the COVID impact. And so we are seeing a much higher attendance rate for our 9th and 10th graders right now than we have historically, and then we're seeing for our 11th and 12th graders. So I do think it's a slow dig out of just the impact of COVID. And so I'm hopeful that if we continue to employ the interventions that we're using and connecting with kids and continue to build a community, that those numbers will across the board get better. But we are seeing some growth in our 9th and 10th graders, so it's promising that there's some shifting coming.
Thank you. Director Wachter?
Thank you. This is such a great presentation. Thanks for being here tonight. And I get to spend a lot of time on this campus because I've had 2 children go through and 2 are in right now. So I get to spend more than my fair share at Clackamas High, and I love it. And I just really want to compliment you and the investment of your time, Kim, on the restorative practices work. I think this is tremendously important for the generation that we are taking care of right now in our schools. And it's one of the things that I think a lot of adults could learn as well.
Yeah.
A little bit of restorative practice. And I think that, you know, the student population that has been moving through our schools has been also carrying around the cell phone so much, and they're not learning how to be socially engaged with cell phones. So thank you for investing in this. How many students run through this program will be one of my questions, and how do we get more involved?
In the restorative practice program, I mean, I think it's a tier 1 approach for all students, and so it isn't necessarily a program. I think what we're really focusing on, and I've also failed to mention that I have a team of people that help me with this. So I have Blythe is on our restorative practices team, as is Angela, and then we have 2 other teachers as well as our school social workers on the team. And so they lead the professional development with staff. And so our real work right now is how do we shift the mindset of our staff to a place of a restorative response versus a punitive response. And that is the work that we're doing to talk about circling in a classroom to build community, have a restorative chat with the student versus just addressing their behavior, right? Just the consequence. Getting away of this action, this consequence, the matrix of behaviors. So it really is a tier 1 school-wide approach, and I think the tier 2 comes in when the kids are out of the behaviors are something that needs to be addressed outside of the classroom, and Blythe and myself are addressing those behaviors and how we work with those students and those families to make sure that they stay in school, to make sure they feel engaged, cared for, and that, I mean, every decision a kid makes is a learning process. So we want to make sure that that is front and center in the conversations that we're having with students. Is that, yeah, we did something that maybe wasn't fully thought through because you're 15, and we just want you to learn from it, right? Like we've all been there. So I think that's the ultimate goal of it, is how are we teaching kids to learn from their behaviors and how do they make it right?
Thank you for that. In the 34% that aren't regularly attending, 90% or more, I know you've shared that it's hard to get a through line or a trend or some kind of demographic that is clear as to how we can approach differently. Everyone's asking this question to all of our school leaders. And I guess one thing that I was intrigued by was that you mentioned that in the care team, which is probably a subset of that 34%, mental health support was really critical. How is there a way to get in front of it? Is there a way to identify earlier which of our students could benefit from mental health support before they stop coming to school?
I think one of the things that's really we're starting to see, I think, some real movement with is that our social worker works at the middle school and at the high school. And so we often know which kids are coming that either already are in pretty intensive mental health support or potentially could need it coming into high school. So that we are sort of bringing our middle schoolers up with that knowledge. So I'm hoping as that relationship of her working in both spaces continues to kind of give us a broader understanding of what the need is. I think there is also it's just a shift in our community. Our demographics have changed. You know, since 2018, we have a 5% increase in kids that are that applied for, I'm losing my words right now, that qualify for free and reduced lunch, right? So I do think the split from Nelson, I do think the COVID, all of those things happened at once. And I think the demographics of Clackamas are changing. And so I think we're just figuring out how to get in front of it. I don't think there's enough mental health support to go around. I mean, I think we continue to partner, those people are booked from morning until the end of the day, every single day with students. And so we do our best to get them all seen, but we're also working with families to find other resources. So I don't know if I answered your question. I talked a lot though.
Yeah, I know it. I just know the frustration of not having enough access to that work and to those.
There's a huge need for it.
Yeah, I was thinking like a screening tool, early applied, would identify higher risk and higher needs for mental health support before they stop coming to school. That's what I was kind of like hoping that
one thing we do is our freshman teams meet from the first week of school. And Blythe has spent some time with our freshman teams. And so we really, we're looking at academics, but we're also looking at students that might be showing some signs in their freshman classes. They're each in a core group of math, language arts, social studies, and science. And those teachers meet regularly. We also have a survey that those students take pretty quickly off the bat. And so our freshman team leader has that information, and we really check in with kids. First, we're trying to see, like, is there somebody they're connected with at the school, the student? And if not, then we connect them with somebody. So our freshman teams, that is a big thing that they're looking at.
Okay, thank you. Last question for me is any anecdotal early returns on Yonder pouches?
You.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Teachers are, the feedback from teachers is so positive that they're not seeing phones in the classroom. Kids are engaging. When you go into classrooms, kids are engaging. I think what Yonder has done is created a line in the sand, right? We are going to have no phones in school. We're going to engage in classes, and that has allowed us to really just to kind of stick to that. There's always been a off and away policy, but I felt like it was harder to enforce. And so now it is just policy, right? And if you have a phone, we're going to kindly deal with you if you have a phone. We're not kicking you out of school. We're just going to have a conversation. We're going to put it away, right? You're a teenager and you have an addiction to this phone. So we're going to have those conversations. But in the classrooms, like teachers, the feedback couldn't be any better. Blythe and I spend most of our day chasing down the students that aren't quite bought in yet. But we're getting them there. We're going to get them there. But it's awesome. It's wonderful. Thank you all for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I want to say this is, again, restorative practices. We don't want the teachers having to interact with the students around phones. Their job is in the classroom, instructing kids, building relationships. And so the admin team, Blythe, our campus monitors, we are the ones that gently go and have conversations with students. And maybe we have to hold their phone for the rest of the day, but we really are focusing a lot on taking that burden away from the teachers.
Did you want to add anything else? Yeah.
Kind of.
Oh.
Yeah. I was just going to say the kids will tell you too, they will complain about it to the end of the day and say how annoying it is and how upsetting it is. And in the same breath, they will say, but my classes are so much better and people are talking to each other and people will interact with me at lunch now. And so it's kind of, they complain about it a lot, but they secretly are starting to really enjoy it and come around.
Come at lunch. Lunch is awesome. It's loud. It's so loud because they're all talking.
Yeah.
Ninth graders.
Awesome. Thank you. Director McVeigh.
I'll be quick. Alyssa, I know you couldn't wait to have one more meeting. And so the Leadership Council, I'm not sure what you call it, but the group of where all the groups come together, I just think that builds such great community. Often schools at the student level are run by student government and they have the biggest voice and they are often the gatekeepers for a lot of activities that happen. And so this council that you've created where everyone has one voice, gets an equal voice, transparency and collaboration, I just think that's going to really help build your community. So
Thank you. Right now I think they're calling themselves the club committee. So, for now.
Great. Thank you. And Director Kemp, do we still have him on, and just want to make sure if he has any questions, we get him.
Here, a couple of the things that I would have asked questions
Okay.
and asked.
He can also write an email, and if he has follow up. Well, thank you so much. I have all the questions in front of me that every single director has already asked. So, so good job, board. I do have just one question, and that was around two things. One was around the student clubs and the student unions, and I just know how important and meaningful all of those opportunities are during school and after school to have students identify, with those communities and partake in those clubs. So just the first question that I have is, how do you imagine continuing to support students through the clubs and the unions and activities? And also, what are the types of resources that you think those clubs, and because I don't know, if they do fundraising or, and I'm also thinking about staff time and for teachers who've already worked a full day to then, spend a couple more time. So how do we help support not only the students in those clubs who want to do probably amazing, terrific things like field trips and conferences, I don't know, and also teachers and adults who are just there, giving their time.
Right. So it does take money. And thankfully, with Petra and Kalia, we've been able to fund, and I'm sure more others, we've been able to start supporting our affinity groups with some money for food. But at the beginning of the year, I put a little bit of my budget aside to get them started. And then they do fundraisers. And that's part of why we had this club committee that started, because they want to support each other in the fundraisers. They don't want to overlap with each other. And their fundraisers are really for things like they want shirts because that helps them feel connected, and then they can sell them. They want to go on field trips. And like I said, our budget takes care of some of it. And then with the help of the district, we do that too, but it's very important. Food gets the students there, but that's a huge part of community, and it's really important. And you can see them really bonding around food. And it doesn't matter really what it is, that'll get them there. And then just watching them play games and have fun. There's usually a part of their meeting that is business, and they want to talk about like what their purpose and their goals are. But our APISU they fill our library, but our LSU this year had to find a bigger space. And our BSU now won't fit in the Cavs Center. So it's really fun to watch those bloom. And I think, we have had a little bit of burnout with some of our affinity leaders, but I think what we're trying to do is partner them with another staff member. So it's not just on one person's hands. And then I think just by the club committee also, it's going to help. But I don't know if anybody has anything else to add. Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, thank you for that explanation. And I was really fortunate the last several years to attend some of those student clubs, and I don't know how I feel about this still, but was mistaken for a student like in all of them. But I take that as a compliment. But I also encourage our board members as well to go to those clubs if you haven't, and really sort of engage with those students there. And then just my last question was around just barriers that folks are seeing to entering college and preparing for life after high school. And I know that when I was in high school, like college tuition and like financial aid, like those were always really big worries. And to this day, like it has continued to be very, very expensive. And so I'm just, how are we getting like students, if college is in their mindset, to be ready and to talk about that?
Absolutely. Well, I'll start off first by saying we have an amazing college and career Aspire coordinator, a former teacher, Nancy Utterbach, that runs our college and career center. And she has lunch and learns. Her communication is amazing. Every time I walk past her office, there is a student sitting at a desk in front of her. And she meets with parents. Juntos is helping quite a bit too because I think it's a lack of communication, or a lack of sometimes students seeing themselves going to college or whatever trade school they might go to. So, I think that Nancy is doing an amazing job, and our counselors, they all partner together. So they're all looking at ways to look at scholarships. I think the FAFSA last year was really difficult. And this year we're thinking about different ways for students to get families in there to help them fill that out. That was a barrier. So, but anybody else have any things?
I mean, I think kids are, when I talk to them, they're like, I don't want to go into debt. I'm not going to college, right? They've heard their parents talk about student loan debt their entire lives, I'm sure. And so I think that's a big barrier for kids. And so I think Nancy does a really good job. And I think just even in college and career classes and in the counseling department talking about scholarships, there is a lot of money out there that people want to give to kids to go to college and to support them. And so just making sure they have that information, that you don't have to go into a lot of debt. There are ways to fund your college education. And like, if there's a different path for you that doesn't make, if going to a four-year college isn't feasible for many reasons, then let's find another path to get to where you need to get, because it's not, everybody's path is different. So let him know that that's okay.
So as a college and career teacher for all the juniors at Clackamas, I think the thing that I hear the most is that they just don't know the options. It's always one option. Whatever their family has told them, it seems to be the one option. And once they take the class, they're like, oh, I didn't realize that these are some other options that I could have. U of O and OSU is great, but I always want to push them to say, hey, like what are the other schools here? Sometimes they feel like CCC is the only option, but of course we have other community colleges in the area, or even if they wanted to leave the state and go to a different community college. So it's all about just laying out all the options. And I always tell them that it is ultimately up to you. Yes, you have your family. Yes, you have outside pressures, but we just want you to make a decision that you want, not a decision that you feel like you got pushed into. So I push them to really make that decision on their own in my class. So, and I really work hard to work with Nancy Utterback, and I actually if I find students that I find to be struggling, or they have a really intense path, like I'll get a student their freshman year saying they want to go to Harvard, I immediately email her. I'm like, get them into your office and let's figure this out for them right now. So yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing the Aspire program. I have two siblings who actually was in that program when they went to CHS. So, and Linda Chelsky, who was an advisor at the time, was amazing. And so, yeah, well, thank you for that. And I got a comment that Paul Kemp, but Director Kemp would like to ask some questions.
Yeah, first off, hopefully you can hear me now.
Or maybe not, or not.
You
So we'll
can't
just
hear
move
me?
on. We'll have some other agenda items, so we'll just message him, and if he has follow-up questions, he can email them. But thank you so much, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda board, we have our board report. So this is an opportunity for each of us as a board member to report on your activities within the district, things that you have been up to, and would like to share. So we are going to just go through the list that I have in front of me and give each board member some time to share their board report. And starting off, we're going to kick it off with Director Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Wei. Alphabetical, right?
Yes,
what you're doing, yeah.
actually, no, not really.
No?
So we're going to throw in a few surprises.
Oh, okay. Okay. Keep on your toes, board members. Yeah. I attended the Rao Middle School collaboration with, and they had a visit at Milwaukee High School Student Health Center. I hadn't been there for about 10 years. I forgot how big it was, and just all the great work they do. I mean, it's just not health, it's physical health, it's mental health, it's dental. They have a food pantry. The mental health, they said, with the resources they have right now, they don't have a waiting list. So yay, but they just do great work. And the collaboration includes a health center update, safe routes to school, lending library, living room, many services, Northwest Family. But they meet monthly to come together and let each other know, the staff, about all those resources. So that's another great yay for ROW. Maybe it's ROW night tonight, But please see that article October 4th. And the staff and administration there is just looking at the individual gaps. There's some great quotes in there, and they're just working so hard. Every student is important, and they look at those gaps and they're filling them in. I went to a couple of volleyball games, a couple of football games, and wanted to comment on the number of students involved in activities. And Clackamas, I forgot to hold this up. I was just so taken by all the kids that are in all of the activities, and they put them, the fall sports anyway, are in this booklet. But there's all the other clubs and the affinity groups that, aren't in here, but they are including kids. They are keeping them busy. And we know that that is important. So they are definitely doing that. But I want to give a shout out again. We had a resolution to honor our administrators. And I just want to shout out to how hard they work and the hours that they put in. And like I said to the Clackamas group, that when I go there, day or night, they are there putting in the hours because they care for kids and they're working really hard. So thank you. Thank you so much. My husband and I volunteered at the Scouters Elementary Jogathon. That was the only day it rained and it poured, but first graders came out because my granddaughter's in that group, and they were just all, but they were still ready to go. But then about halfway it quit, so something happened, but it was fun. They just all have such a great time. PCLA is hosting an online YouTube community educational candidate forum October 17th, Thursday at 6:30. So look for that. We have a couple county commissioners and then legislative leaders. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention, it was brought to my attention that in the voter pamphlet, there is an error. The school board has not endorsed any candidate. We can endorse individually, but not as a school board. And it was an error. So we all need to be careful. Option 1 and option 2, they're different. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Bauer, and also for clarifying that. I'm going to go back to Director Kemp, who hopefully we can hear this time with the board report.
I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Okay, we'll skip over him, and we will move over to Director McVeigh.
I'll be quick. One activity was the benefits committee, and always ran very well by Michelle. But they should see, the district should see some significant savings throughout the year on our new pharmacy contract. So that's a good thing. They work really hard to contain costs in that group and make sure everyone has a voice.
Thank you. Next, Director Wachter.
Round robin's fun. Okay. I have 2 high school students that are in fall sports, so I spent a lot of time at volleyball games and track meet or cross country meets. So I've gotten to see some really great coaching. And I just really think the athletic teams that I've seen this last month really are building culture at our schools, and I'm very, very happy to just sort of see firsthand how that gets played out in conflicts and how that gets played out in healthy competition and treating each other in a belonging way. I see that happening a lot on the teams that I've been going to games for. And the other thing I wanted to just call attention to as an activity, I spent 3 days because I'm an Oregon School Board Association member. Also, I spent 3 days representing the Clackamas region at mid-September gathering, and there were a couple of just key items that occurred during that meeting. I just want to share those with you now. First off, not everyone's favorite vote, but there was a proposal and it passed to increase the dues for all districts, which hasn't been done. Just dues to OSBA hasn't been done, I think, for 20 years. And it was time to sort of level up there and keep the OSBA from having to tap into its annuity. That passed quite easily. Secondly, there was a proposal and it passed for a new caucus to be added to the OSBA, and the new caucus is the LGBTQIA2S+ caucus, and it joins now with the Color Caucus and the Rural Caucus. There was some concern around whether the caucus model was appropriate and whether it was actually accomplishing anything. And so there were some discussions around whether they should just stop now and not approve the new caucus, the LGBTQ caucus. But there was overwhelming support for making sure that there was leadership from the OSBA and having that new caucus added, and to certainly make sure that school board members in all parts of Oregon understood the priority of making this known, that that the OSBA is truly focusing on everybody belonging in our schools. And then finally, we spent quite a bit of time on the strategic plan review, which has been a couple years and a little dusty, and a lot of the words need revision, including mission, vision, values, and objectives. So there's going to be a new a bit of work on that, and I think that's important to refresh, especially as we're coming into a legislative session very shortly. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And before we actually get to Vice Chair Benaloga, we're going to go back to Director Kemp, who is now, I believe, ready to go.
Hopefully you can hear me now. Still can't. Okay, never mind.
Nope. Okay. That's okay. All right, Vice Chair Benaloga.
All right, thank you, Chair Way. I just have a couple of reports. I went to the Eco Schools fall meeting, and the Eco Schools works with Clackamas County and Metro. They do trash audits. They have worked on milk dispensers in the district, and they've worked on sustainable silverware and sustainable practices in our cafeterias. So if you're interested in any of that, they are a great group of folks, and I attend their meetings as often as I can, and they're alive and well in the district and doing great work. So it was wonderful to see them again and start off the year with spending some time with them. And I also had a chance to go to the Milwaukee High School homecoming football game, very exciting. And I also want to second just how many administrators and district employees are at the football games. There is a lot of staff. There's a lot of staff at those games, and along with some great parents, amazing kids that are there to cheer on their team and the cheer squad and the dancers, the dance team doing sideline cheer as well. So there's just a lot of support there. And I just appreciate everybody who comes out to all the games, and I hope to make it to some more.
Thank you so much. And for me, I have a couple of things. So I've been a proud member of the Oregon School Boards Association, board members of Color Caucus for the last several years. And during the fall, we always revisit new positions to be filled with that. And so September 27th was the deadline for interested board members who identify as part of that group to apply. And so we have everyone from the president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, at-large representatives, and then each of the regional directors in all 6 of the districts, as well as the legislative policy committee liaison with the OSBA. All of those positions have been opened, and so happy to report that we've received just really great interest from various school board members who want to apply. And I am not part of the nominating committee this year, but there's a subset of that group that is working on the nomination, just vetting folks and making sure that those slots are filled for next year. So very exciting. And then the next thing that I want to share is somewhat of a really great email and an invitation, particularly for women leaders in education. And I don't know if Superintendent James and others have received this, but this is really a second annual Women's Leadership Summit that's held in Bend. It's with COSA, which is the other very long acronym of school board administrators that we have, and the OSBA. And it's really an opportunity for relationship building. Last year we had a Park Row School Board member who did an amazing job, Sonia McKenzie, who was chair on a panel of women leaders. This year we are going to have our very own former chair, Libra Ford, who's with the Women's Foundation of Oregon, going. And all that to say that the Leadership Summit conflicted with the board meeting this evening. So I was very excited to go, and then found out it was in conflict with our board meeting tonight. And they do have a meeting tomorrow, or it will be continuing on tomorrow as well. But for folks here who might be interested in participating next year, I think it would be really important to perhaps have a small group of North Clackamas women leaders go and participate. So I just wanted to put that out there. And with that being said, I think that concludes my board report. And I don't know if we want to give Director Kemp Another shot? Probably not. Okay.
No.
We're sorry, Director Kemp. We'll catch you next time. So we're going to move on with the superintendent's report. So next on our agenda, I'd like to welcome our superintendent, Shay James.
Thank you. It's been some great information tonight, so hopefully we keep it coming. You can go ahead and move to the next slide, please. This year, we have welcomed more students as enrollment is up from the close of last year, and we're at 17,057 students as of October 1st. And I think it's important to know while we're still not at pre-pandemic level, we are trending in the right direction. We, of the 10 largest school districts, we are the only district that is having our enrollment continue to go up. So that's great. And here you can see enrollment trends by levels. You'll see here we're down in elementary and we're up overall in secondary. And this wasn't something that was unexpected. It was something that when we look at our flow analytics enrollment data, we knew that we were looking at this, and it is playing out as we suspected. So last year, we've heard a lot about RAL tonight, but last year our RAL middle school students were asked to earn a total of 30,000 literacy units on Lexia in addition to their classroom instruction. And just super proud to report that our students actually surpassed the goal that they set of 30,000 units. And this really led up to reducing the number of students in high risk and some risk on our Fast Bridge literacy assessment. In addition, many of you have mentioned tonight around RAL being in the newspaper and highlighted as they were the only middle school across our state that made the gains that they made on our statewide assessment. And so we know that this important work that they are doing is working. And when we asked the RAL staff, how are you making this happen? And the journalist asked, how are you making this happen? They really summarized it by saying belief in all students, relationship, following core curriculum, instructional and assessment guidance, differentiation, and sharing the data with their students so their students can be part of the goal setting and goal making that is there. So we're just really proud of the work that they're doing and the leadership of Principal Moore, and have been excited to celebrate them all week. And some of you asked tonight about how our cell phone free spaces are going, and we continue to see positive results. Here we have a student quote, and it says, "This has actually been pretty cool. My friends and I are actually now talking to each other in the hallway between classes. Last year we would just come out and be on Snap, and then the bell would ring and we wouldn't have even spoken with each other. I actually get to talk to my friends now." And this student quote represents many others that have been shared. We find that our principals, in fact, Principal Ingalls shared a note with us not too long ago that a kid had just left on her desk saying thank you. And so we're finding that happens. And while we know not all are excited about this transition, many are finding the transition to phone-free spaces to have many positive impact. And you see some of that here in noteworthy decreases with our student incident categories. We're down 25% in disruptive conduct, and we think the absences of phones may be leading to more engagement and less time wandering halls and being out of classes. And our fighting and harassment is down 50% and 13% respectively. And the absences of phones mean people aren't filming as much, and the meetups aren't occurring over the phone, and people can also walk away from conflict in a different manner. And we're also seeing substance abuse down 35%. So again, impromptu meetups aren't as frequent, and students can remain in class without the temptation of getting the messages to meet up. And then, we're also seeing a little bit of potential impact with our chronic absenteeism. It's still too early to tell on that, but it's a place that we're looking at the data to see if there's some correlation and make some connection there. We're currently surveying students, staff, parents, and guardians. And we also have a community conversations that's coming up here soon, that's scheduled this month, in which we will actually be talking about our cell phone free spaces with our community. And then we will be circling back to you all with a presentation as promised to give you even more information as to where we are with this. In Division 22, the school district is required to report to the school board and community in a public board meeting on compliance with Oregon's Division 22 standards for public elementary and secondary schools every year. These are the OARs that govern standard practices in public schools. The Division 22 standards include over 50 individual rules, which can be categorized into 4 large buckets, which you see here: teaching and learning, health and safety, district performance and accountability, and human resources. And you can see some of the examples of what specific standards are in each of the categories. So for example, there is fingerprinting-based background checks standards with a human resources group, and there are state assessment requirements within teaching and learning standards. And so each of these categories, we have these standards. So over the past few weeks, the North Clackamas executive team has reviewed the requirements for compliance in the 2023-24 school year. Staff indicate we were in compliance with the required standards for the 23-24 school year, with the exception of OAR 581-022-2263 regarding required minutes of physical education instruction at the middle school level. And as we've brought forth to you before, this is an evolving requirement, one that is incongruent with the current middle school schedule, and one that North Clackamas schools also reported non-compliance with for the prior school year. So despite new legislation that has provided more flexibility, the legislation does not provide enough flexibility to make the current middle school instructional program compliant for us. So district staff has worked with ODE to determine options moving forward and has launched an internal effort to review all of the options. And it's important for you to know there's a strong likelihood of needing to rework the middle school schedules in the coming months for implementation during the 25-26 school year. We're currently working on that. We're getting input from staff at the middle schools, from students, and many folks. So we'll keep you abreast on that process, and we'll be bringing something back to you in the next few months. Following this report to the board and community, staff will submit the appropriate report to the ODE and post compliance information on the school district website prior to ODE's deadline. And I want to wrap up with some really great news. Nutrition service team members throughout the country were nominated for the School Leader of the Year through Chartwell's K-12 Signature Recognition Program. And that program's called Chartwell's Cheers, bit of a tongue twister there, which honors associates and teams who exemplify the Chartwell's K-12 values: responsibility, learning, resilience, connection, and fun. And this year's winner was our very own Greg Collins, which we're very excited about. And I want to read Greg's nomination to you, as I think it really exemplifies who he and his team is. And it reads, Greg is a true servant leader who prioritizes the growth and development of his staff. He spends significant time training and developing his team, ensuring they have the skills and knowledge needed to excel. Greg teaches by example, demonstrating a strong work ethic, dedication, and passion for his role. His hands-on approach and willingness to support his team in any capacity fosters a collaborative and motivated work environment. Greg is committed to performance excellence in every aspect of his work. He ensures that menu choices are both nutritious and appealing, considering the diverse preferences of the student population. His attention to food presentation elevates the dining experience, making it enjoyable and engaging for students. Additionally, Greg successfully deploys our marketing programs, effectively promoting healthy eating habits and the benefit of food service. Greg excels in building and maintaining strong relationships with clients. His approachable demeanor, active listening skill, and ability to address concerns promptly and effectively have earned the trust and respect of our clients. Greg's proactive communication and collaborative problem-solving approach ensure that clients' needs are met and expectations are exceeded. And I can just say, there is not a person that I don't talk to in this district that does not praise our nutrition services team and thanks them for the work that they do. And when we reached out to Greg and congratulated him and said thank you, just as in Greg's style, he put it right back on his team. And, about what would and would not happen without them. And so he was supposed to be in Florida this week taking his award. And as we know, he was not able to go, but he will be able to go later in the year and accept his award. So we're really proud of him. So thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Superintendent James. And I was just reflecting on the beginning of the school year and just can't believe we're only 5 weeks in. It seems like so much longer than that. But you have definitely, I'm sorry for that reminder, everyone. But you have covered a lot already, and so we just really thank you and your leadership, and of course all of those that surround you every day, just making this all work. So thank you so much. And I do want to have some time for board members to ask any questions or comments. So, Director Bauer.
You forgot a couple things. Your Saban Teacher Award. Yes. Do you want to talk about that? And then everyone has lunch, right?
Yes, and
Yeah,
we
good
did talk
news.
about lunch earlier, and I think we were saving the Saban Here piece coming up as well. We got to sprinkle a little bit throughout,
Okay,
but it's
okay.
exciting news that we did have our Clackamas County Regional Teacher of the Year, one of our Saban teachers, and we're really excited for what that means for our school district, our county, and for our students. And we could not be more excited for Robert Parker, I should have said his name, for what he is doing with kids in class. And I would say that our students really talk about how he makes the work come alive. He makes architecture come alive for them, and he's able to put I would say the instructional content into real world practice for them so that they can see how it applies. So yes, and we'll be doing a little bit more with that throughout the year. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Great. Thank you.
Vice Chair Benaloga.
Yes, I just had, thank you so much again for an update. And I had 3 things. The student incident decrease about the cell phones. Can you just clarify for the community, is that over the same time period as last year? Is that that's what you're saying, is that decrease is from the same time period that we would?
Correct. Yes, we're looking at data from the same period of time from last year to this year to see what that decrease, and we'll continue to do that. And also looking for other data points that are popping out at us that maybe we didn't expect. There are things that we didn't expect, and just like the absenteeism is one that we're kind of trying to dial in on there. So, yeah.
Well, and that's excellent if that's any indication.
Yeah.
That we're on the right path. I mean, those were wonderful numbers, so I appreciate that. And then can you also just talk a little bit about what the ripple effects would be if we did comply with those PE minutes, that Division 22? Because I know we've talked about this. I just want to clarify for our community why we have the mindset that we do, and that there are some ripple effects if we did in fact scale those back, right?
Yeah, I'll talk about a few, and I'm going to ask our Assistant Superintendent of Education, Dr. Dibley, to work her way to the microphone because she can probably add quite a bit more information. But I think for us, we could do some quick fixes with the schedule for sure, and we could make the minutes work. But we know that the students that would be the most harmed are some of our most underrepresented students. So some of our students with disabilities, our English language language learners, they would lose access to elective classes that other students have. So further allowing, more privilege for students to have courses that they would not be able to, that make a difference, that we know make a difference, not only in being engaged in their schooling, but for post-secondary and all of that. And I'm going to let Dr. Dibley share some additional information.
Yeah, I think Dr. James covered it. We definitely talk about constraints, which not only is about programs, but also like our dual language immersion program as we're extending it to secondary and continuing it through, that we want to make sure that kids have an opportunity. And we all know the importance of electives and how those electives fulfill so many of our other needs, right? Other academic needs, and really keeps kids in school. So I think that this actually is providing us a wonderful opportunity to assess what's going well in our schedule and what isn't going well. So it needs time to cure, because we need to hear from teachers and understand what are the opportunities for growth and what's going well. We need to hear from students. It is directly impacting them. So we need to make sure that we understand that our choices are impacting them, and we want to make sure that that is happening. And we also want to comply with what the law states. We've advocated in a variety of ways, because we know that the intent of the law is wellness and not necessarily in physical education, but we are going to comply with it, and we just want to do our due diligence and seek information from all parties, including parents.
All right, thank you. And lastly, thank you for leaving the slide up about Chartwells. Just want to shout out to the district and to our nutrition staff that are feeding our kids. They're feeding 100% of our kids for free every day. And I just think that's, obviously 100% of them aren't eating, but every kid that wants to eat gets to eat for free. And I just think that is amazing. We need to feed our children. We need to feed our kids at school. And we just shout out to Chartwells and to every one of our nutrition services workers that is making sure that our kids are fed every day. Very much appreciated.
And I do want to, I think it's important to point out that yes, most of our students are getting lunch, but it is, and breakfast, it is our schools that provide breakfast and lunch in which all students are able to eat for free. And, we do have, like, our CWA, our online school, right? They don't provide breakfast and lunch. And so we just want to be able to make that distinction. But yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. Yes, I stand corrected.
Okay, other questions or comments from board members? Okay, Director Bauer.
Well, the first slide, there was some growth, and I was going to ask you about that. Could we go back to that? Was it the first one? Yeah. Oh, right. No, the second one then. Yeah, down elementary 113 students from close of last year. So aren't other districts finding that too, that the younger, there's just the population perhaps is not, it's not increasing at those young years. Is that true?
Yeah, I'm going to let our chief of staff.
We do. We work with demographers, flow analytics, look at 10-year enrollment projections, and they're seeing it in the region, in fact, across the country, but we spend more time talking here locally. But yes, our birth rates are down. They can look at birth rates in our zip codes back 5 to 6 years. And
but yet we have big growth, middle school and high school, and some of that is not, we weren't seeing as much at Clackamas, but we're seeing a lot at Nelson. Is that true? So
yeah, we're seeing that at Nelson, Kennedy, Scouters, so in some of the areas where there's a lot of growth and buildings that are happening. I think overall, district-wide, we're not up hugely, like when we look at our district in its entirety, but we can see different pockets that are definitely up.
Okay, thank you.
That was going to be my question, was also just how evenly is this spread across our district, east side versus west side? Can you comment a little bit on some of the west side schools? I know the east side is, as you mentioned, some of those areas have been booming.
We can provide that. We can pull that together for you. There is a little bit of information in the class size report that looks at where staff were moved. So you will see in some ways that indicates where we had projected some numbers that maybe didn't materialize. Not hard and fast, but you'll see that in the class size report here in just a minute.
Great. Well, that's a great segue. I did not plan that, but look at that.
You did.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up, thank you so much, Dr. James. Next on the agenda is our 2024-2025 class size report, and I welcome our Assistant Superintendent of Education, Dr. Yvonne Dibley, who will introduce our guests.
Thank you so much, directors. I am here with my esteemed colleagues. I have Executive Director Tammy O'Neill, Executive Director Petra Callan, and Associate Director Kelly Rhea, who is here to represent elementary programs. This number just represents the same number that Dr. James just shared. It's the number has been updated from your board report as it reflects the October 1st data collection that we report to the Oregon Department of Education. As you know, every year we, as Chief of Staff Shireman just shared, we work with our demographers and we get all of our projections. And so therefore we staff, and we've really been diligent of continuing to keep the ratio in that class average of 25 at elementary, 28 at middle, and 32 at high school. Obviously, adjustments are made and based on students that are experience different needs. So whether there's family income situations, English learners, students that are experiencing or that live with a disability, and also those numbers also reflect the staffing allocations that are provided by the student investment account to reduce class size. Allocations are just that, and they're a good guess of what and who is going to show up in August. And so inevitably in August, we need to connect with our elementary programs, which usually sees a lot of the movement. Kids move from feeder to feeder. And so we were very fortunate to have some budgetary leeway where we were able to allocate the various FTE. We had 11.9 in a variety of ways in which that was allocated both on a certified or licensed as well as classified FTE. We had 2 FTE that were adjusted and allocated in August to our middle, and 4 FTE that were allocated to our high schools.
Thank you. All right, well, I'm really excited to share with you some positive news in our elementary class size report on behalf of Dr. Ahrens, our Director of Elementary Programs. Here you can see our average class size this year sits just at that 23.6, and you can see the trends over the years. I do want to bring attention to the looking at the blended grade classrooms. You see we have 16 blended grade classrooms this year. You're going to hear me use the term dual grade classes. We use blended in our presentations because I think that's the term that most people are familiar with when we talk about these classes, but truly they're dual grade classes where and what that means is that the students who are in the 2 separate grade levels within one classroom are receiving instruction from their grade level standards. So we're not teaching all the students in the same class the same things. They are getting their grade level standards based on the grade that they are in a dual grade class. And there's a lot of different strategies and approaches to how we serve those students in that way. We're really pleased always to keep our classes below 35, but the number of classes that we're keeping at or below 25, I think is also a really important note, is that we have over 165 of our classes below that 25 number. All right, oh, thank you for that. But I think the thing we are most proud about out of elementary departments is that we have zero overflow. For those in the community, overflow is where we meet a cap or a class size amount in a building. And so we ask a neighborhood family to attend a nearby school for just that year. And I see some looks in the faces. We all know that that does not feel good for anyone. Our administrative team, our school principals, and quite frankly, all of our elementary staff were really committed to keeping our kids at their neighborhood school in their communities, regardless of what time of year they register with us. And so we're really pleased to report that we have 0 students in overflow, and at this time are not anticipating needing to utilize overflow, barring some very unexpected increase in numbers. And our average class sizes by grade, you can see they're well within our expectations for the primary and intermediate grades.
All right, for our middle schools, you will see that our core class size average has gone down from this last year and has been among the really one of the lowest in several years. Core refers to language arts, social studies, math, and science. So we look at all those classrooms and then we average out those numbers, which look really pretty consistent across the schools. So the class sizes that are probably the highest right now in core are at RAU, which is really great. That means their enrollment has increased. And you see that they were allocated an additional paraprofessional because it would be too disruptive to try to go in and create classes that would disrupt teams, and it would not be good for students. So instead, looking to have a para come in and support kids within those classrooms. And for high school, we are also down from last year, which is really great. Again, we really look at core in those 4 areas, but the class sizes do not always look as consistent at the high school level because there is so much more additional programming than we have. Class sizes this can happen. It doesn't often happen, but you can really see a range sometimes due to singletons. For example, if we just have one class of AP Calculus that we are able to offer, we want to make sure all the students who want to be able to take that class can take that class. And let's say 38 kids sign up for that. We really aren't staffed to run 2 sections of that, so we would run 1. That's one of the examples. One of the smaller class sizes might be for a core ELD class, where we want to make sure that that class size is smaller, that we're able to serve kids appropriately.
So when discussing class size, we think it's important to know that we've utilized some grant funding to also add additional FTE to the building that is not reflected in the class size number. And we know that lowering the ratio of students to adults can be significant. And so we want to take this opportunity to highlight that we have done so. And we've done so mainly in elementary and middle. I think that's really significant when you think about pre-COVID and post-COVID and how that shift has changed. It has stayed the same at high school. And now Executive Director O'Neill will also add some context as to how the central office is providing additional support to help systems, assessments, and behavior needs in our schools.
So one of our charges at the district level is to activate resources in strategic ways to elevate the effectiveness of instructions in the building. And so we wanted to provide examples of what we have done this year to support schools. One of the examples is that we created assessment teams, and they're full of substitutes to actually go into our kindergarten and first grade classes to actually conduct the assessments. They're lengthy. They're lengthy at that age. And so that frees up our instructors. It produces efficiencies. They get real good at it. And so they go in there and they do the benchmark assessments. We have consistency in there. So we really know that our data is accurate and ready to be used by the teachers. All of our schools now happily report that they have leadership teams. One of the things a great leader does is to tap into their instructional leaders at their school to really build their understanding and their capacity to inform the systems. And that could be climate, the climate and culture of a school, that could be their academic programming, and that could be their use of data to identify needs as far as tier 2 and tier 3 support. So we have those leadership teams at each of our schools, K-12, to again elevate that leadership and really produce that high impact problem solving. And lastly, this year we we combined already allocated FTE under a behavior team. And so what that is are our autism behavior specialists. They've been in our district for quite some time. We have some paraeducators that are actually a different job category that is interim. And so they're able to go to school as prescribed by the need. And a school psychologist who actually has expertise in systems and MTSS processes, our multi-tiered system of support. And then all that is under the leadership and guidance of one of our coordinators. We allocated to that team. And so what this team does is go into schools when there is a need. They'll go in and they will help to stabilize a kiddo who is really struggling behaviorally. And then what they'll do is stay there to train the staff in able to actually implement the behavior support plan that they help create before they leave. So really tightly providing really strategic, intentional support to gain independence of both the student and the school staff to respond to these student needs that you see in the classrooms.
And that is it for our annual report. So we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Looking at my fellow board members, if you have any questions or comments. Director McVeigh.
Nobody wants to follow you, Mitzi. Especially on board reports. When you talk about school climate, is there a system to measure that? Is there 360 reviews done of the principal, or is there not a youth truth survey, but a teacher truth survey, or anything, a teacher truth survey, or anything to measure that what people are feeling, or do they just go through their union rep for that?
Yeah, there's various ways in which systematically we measure school climate. So one of the things that all of our schools, all 32 schools, do is a self-assessment that looks at both the behavior and climate as well as the academic aspect of a multi-tiered system of support. So in a way, it creates an audit and they can identify what their next steps could be. The leadership teams that Executive Director O'Neill shared about, that is in partnership with elementary and secondary programs. So at the building level, the teams are able to say, okay, what is our behavior data telling us? Where are the upticks of referrals? And then they problem solve within that time. And then we implemented our STOIC framework, which is really thinking about structure teaching expectations, conducting observations, interacting positively, and correcting fluently. So those are just ways to have individuals think about that. And lastly, it's part of our teacher evaluation matrix. So that is something that our second domain of our evaluation framework looks at how a teacher is interacting, what their expectations are, et cetera, and how they're creating climate in their classroom. Anybody else can?
I think mine was more, how do you evaluate the evaluators? Is there a system? Because the principal is in charge of the climate, right? They are setting the stage, if you will. And so is that just when you walk into a school and you can sense it, or is it just coaching the coach, or?
I think as we're kind of mumbling here, the experience surveys that Dr. Williams Rodriguez and team have also shared, I think the Youth Truth Survey. So it really is a place where we capture, and definitely, you know, Dr. James and I have visited 27 of our 32 schools, and you can sense, you can start seeing like, oh, okay, I'm seeing this. We had a wonderful representation tonight of Clackamas High School. That was all a part of the conversations that Dr. Callan and her team had with all of our principals about how do you want to build in that culture? How do you want the kids to feel? So yeah, so I think there's some anecdotal and also some qualitative data.
Great. Thank you. That was a great question. And I'm looking at Director Bauer. Okay.
Thank you, Chair Way. And I want to comment that all of my board members have full-time jobs. I am retired, so it makes a difference. So where are my notes? Okay, so kudos to you guys for continuing to keep that class size down. It is connected with funding though, so I want to remind everything, as Director Wachter said, we need to get involved in that coming up. So that's related to that, everybody. Oh, and the transfers, you know, I think you explained some of that. There was just a few that were a little, didn't seem to follow that growth maybe, or the transfer from, okay, I get the Sunnyside discounted, Spring Mountain to Llewellyn. So we've had, I mean, that Spring Mountain population is not growing. It's kind of, yeah, there isn't a lot of room for new houses there. Okay. Mount Scott to Linwood, is that also not a growth area, Mount Scott? The transfer there?
You know, that is a place, Mount Scott, when we were doing the allocations, was actually area that provided me lots of heartburn because we were unsure of how that enrollment projection was going to come through. And allocations are really about what your projection is and what you're allocating based on the numbers. But we also look at staffing, right? We also know how many kids sit in each grade level. And so it really is about that best guess. And sometimes we work with HR to ensure that those transfers happen. And then sometimes you get enrollment and either that transfer comes back or sometimes they need to hire a new staff member, which in the case of Mount Scott, we ended up transferring a staff member because that was our best guess. And the kids that showed up in August, we actually needed to allocate some numbers to them. And that's just how that works.
And it does take some time for it to all settle down, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. But good too that there aren't overflows. So that was great. Yeah. So I just wondered about the PE classes and music. How are their counts? I mean, are they settling out? But I do understand, like you said, when there's those one classes, then PE might get really big and some might get small and others. Are you seeing any problems with PE and music class
No,
sizes?
actually, that's a place where we're over-enrolled. So oftentimes we look at how many classes need to have the number of PE sections in order to get their PE minutes. And depending, I'm going to try to explain this without showing a visual. But so we look at the number of sections that are needed to ensure that all students are meeting their minutes. And oftentimes within like a full-time FTE, that means that they had, let's say, 40 sections available. And so they, that is a place where that, you know, that there's different things that that staff member can support in the school because they have that allocation. And we work with HR, we work with our principals. We just want to make sure that we're meeting our PE minutes and we have the correct allocation.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it. Thank you so much for the information in the report. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Director Wachter.
Thank you. Thank you for this great report. I was curious, and I did ask the superintendent for some breakdown by elementary school, because I just want to see just consistency around that, and we saw it for high school and middle, so thank you for working on that. The question I have specifically is around the people and culture standard, which I think is really brilliant and incredibly important. So I just want to just applaud you for the work that's been done to build these teams, specifically the behavior team. Is that a new team this year? Can we call it the behavior SWAT team?
I like
SWAT?
No,
Can
I
we do
like
that?
it. Let me write this down. Hold on.
So this is a new, this is a,
It is.
it's new, okay.
The organization is, right? So we had the FTE, so we had the behavior specialists, we have the paraeducators, we have our allocations of school psychologists, but it didn't have the leadership needed to really build an effective system that responds to the needs of the school in a really honestly equitable way, right? It would often be somebody knows the cell phone number of that behavior specialist and says, "Can you come help me?" And we weren't looking at providing a way for all schools to request help and then prioritizing based on the need. And so now it's under a leadership umbrella of, again, with one of our coordinators, Stephanie Kendall, who is just brilliant in all areas of seeing a kiddo and supporting their needs, meeting them where they are and getting them to a level of success, and just really built them to be able to respond, to the schools in a really proactive, way that's going to land using all our tools.
I love how our school district does build systems and teams, and this seems like a really great one to add. How is this team measured? What does success look like?
I love it.
Outcomes. I want to hear about maybe future report backs on outcomes.
I can't
is this working or
wait. Certainly, so glad you asked. It's almost like it queued you up for that. So exclusionary discipline, huge, right? And our exclusionary discipline data is reflective of an over identification of our students with disabilities.
Got it.
Right. So kids can't learn if they're not in school. We need you in there, and that means behavior too, right? Can't learn behavior and fill in those gaps if you're not in those classrooms and we're not there to support you. Second one is going to be our enrollment in restricted placements. Are the outcomes of our kiddos that move into restricted placements are not as successful as students who spend their time in a general education classroom. And so we just want to do all we can in providing those tier 2, tier 3 supports before we look at a different self-contained placement for them. And then lastly is looking at our overall identification. As I said, our job is to identify 100% of the students with disabilities who need special education services, and to not make sure that we know that that is needed and not jump to that label of a child right away. And so they support, I didn't even mention this cool thing, they provide classes. So that's our tier 1 support, is consultation and classes for our staff, both licensed and our classified staff, to respond to student needs, student behavioral needs, because it's skill building. And it's like anything, you do it, you learn more, you do better. And so they are providing those opportunities for our staff as well. And then again, going in, consulting, a lot of think partners going on with principals and other school staff just to say, what would you do on this piece? So providing that level of expertise as well.
I would
Love the
share
data.
that our only complaint is that we're probably going to need more of that. And it's going to be hard, right? Folks have found it so valuable that they want to continue to learn from folks. So
Thank you. Looking forward to future report.
Thank you. Great questions and responses. Vice Chair Benaloga?
I just have one question and one comment. So going back to the dual grade or blended classrooms, can you talk a little bit about how are we supporting teachers for ELD and SPED in those blended classrooms? It's already challenging enough, right? So what are we doing to support our teachers, and what framework do we have in place to support them for those blended rooms?
For blended classrooms, our strategies are really similar for our straight classrooms in that we are pushing into our classrooms for supports. We're providing in all of our dual grade classrooms. Teachers get additional planning time, and that could include collaborative planning time with special education educators and ELD educators. And that's built in throughout the year, typically planned at the beginning of the year, strategic points throughout the year where that extra time will be given, additional resources from the building level and also through our different departments, such as paraprofessional support, are all things that go into those dual grade classrooms and could specifically be allocated. Another thing that's our principals pay really close attention to is the makeup of the class lists. When we have, because there's two different ways, well, there's multiple ways, but the two primary ways we see dual grade classes come into existence is one is a school leader and a team of teachers decides that pedagogically they want to implement. And so that's where you'll see schools that have all of the grade levels all of the classes between two grade levels in dual grades. And when they set it up that way, there can be some really thoughtful research-backed approaches to supporting all the student needs. Then you're also going to see classes where you see a school that has one dual grade class in between two straight classes. And that is a choice. It's usually a thoughtful choice that is made in collaboration with the teacher and the administrator to tackle what could be a challenge in numbers. For example, if you have 45 students in one grade and 45 students in another grade, you essentially have a class and a half at each grade, and trying to figure out how you're going to staff that appropriately and give students the best experience possible. So the way that they would support those classes may look slightly different depending upon the need and the reason that they moved into those dual grade classrooms, but it's definitely a factor that is taken into consideration. I also want to mention, because I know if Dr. Ahrens was here, she would want to make sure that we were saying this. We monitor our dual grade classrooms very closely. We monitor their class lists, we monitor their achievement, we work closely with the principals because we do know it's a point of question and people often wonder how can we do this effectively? Will the students in the dual grade class have the same robust, rich experience as students in a straight class? I feel confident in answering yes to that because we monitor it really closely and work with our principals to problem solve.
Well, thank you. And yes, and supporting the teachers to be successful in that dual grade is so important, and feeling like they have support, whether it be for ELD students or special education students. And I just want to thank you all in the district so much for working on class size. We know it's not the only indicator, the only helpful indicator of success, but we know it's really important. And I just want to again thank our community, because the reason we're here is in large part because of our community supporting the district, levy after levy, and understanding how important it is that we keep teachers in the classroom, because it matters, and we can see by the numbers, and we're going to continue to see by the numbers and the data that it just gets better and better. So again, we need to thank our community for supporting the district at every turn, and thank the district for the commitment to making sure that we're doing the best that we possibly can for our students. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. I think we're going to wrap this up. We have one more item on the agenda, so thank you so much, Dr. Dibley and team, and thank you again. And your Dr. Dibley is going to be taking on for the next agenda that we have and our final agenda. And I'd like to welcome again our Superintendent of Education, Dr. Yvonne Dibley, who will welcome our guest who has just been waiting so patiently for this evening. So board, if you want to just limit your questions at the end of the night, we know it's a little bit later than we plan to adjourn, but again, just want to give lots of time for this really important presentation. So
Thank you so much. It is a really important presentation, and it's my pleasure to introduce Natalie Whistler, who is the Director of Community Services here in our district. And I would just be remiss in not saying that this is really a favorite report for the board each year. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Natalie.
Thank you. Thank you and good evening. I am excited to talk about summer learning even late into the evening. So it's a good one. Oh, and we're done. Excellent. All right. This summer, we were able to offer a robust selection of summer learning programs across K-12 plus, serving about 2,400 students. And that's about a 20% increase over last year, which is exciting. When we plan those programs, we plan for equity-driven summer learning. Those programs need to be accessible, equitable, diverse, and inclusive at every level. When we plan for those programs, we think not only about a student's academic needs, but their well-being. And we plan for programs that are engaging, that kids want to attend during the summertime. We want our students to be excited to show up the next day. On the right, you'll see a graphic from the Oregon Department of Education, and you'll see some tenets that they've identified for high-quality summer learning opportunities. And when we go through the presentation, I think you'll see these tenets infused in almost everything we did, including ensuring mental health and well-being, integrating well-rounded learning and work that matters, and community partnerships as well. All right, so summer learning happens 3 months of the year, but the planning for summer learning is a year-round process. So you can see that right as we set into winter break last year, we held our first summer planning meeting in December of 2023. One thing that makes summer learning planning challenging is the lack of predictable funding sources for summer learning. This has been extremely variable across the last few years. And last year we were in a place again where we were closely tracking House Bill 4082, watching to see if that may identify summer learning funding for us. And as we did our planning, we went ahead and planned for what we could do without any additional funding, had multiple options, and then we kept a wish list of things that we'd like to offer should we get additional funding. And we tracked that along. We made sure what we were offering met the proposed criteria for that grant, and so had a little hope and a little practicality as well in our planning. And then in March, as we were ready to go posting our staff positions, that bill passed, and shortly later, ODE released the allocations, and unfortunately we were not identified for funding. Only 44 districts were able to receive summer learning funding last year. Our high school programs offered a broad selection of courses for students who needed to recover course credits. We had 722 high school students attend summer school, which is a significant increase from last year. We also had an increase in the percentage of those courses that were completed for a letter grade, which requires the students to complete 100% of the class. So 75% of those courses were completed for a letter grade, which is exciting. Overall, those students completed 1,600 classes and earned 803.5 credits towards their experience. We had 35 students attend senior session and 31 students completed senior session and were able to walk with their peers. 21 high school students were able to participate in our high school student work study. These students participate in our child development courses at Sabin-Schellenberg. They received mentoring from Sabin-Schellenberg teachers. They learned work skills, and ultimately they were paid for their work hours in our elementary summer programs. These students are a delight to work with. I enjoy meeting them every year, and I enjoy hiring them after they graduate. I was trying to do a rough count, and I think we're up to about 8 or 9 students from this program that we've been able to hire as district employees post-graduation. Some of those students are working on continuing their education and hope to become teachers. And this is a really exciting thing to watch and track. Our middle school academic support and enrichment program took on a couple new program features this year. We reformatted the program a bit to where mornings focused on academic support, including AVID strategies, study skills. Students worked on collaborative learning and metacognition. And then in the afternoon, our students participated in high interest enrichment activities led by community partners. They got to participate in DJ lessons, cooking classes, and a broad variety of other experiences that students were really excited to attend. We also offered an intentional 5th to 6th grade middle school transition program for the first time, serving 127 students from all 4 middle schools. The parent feedback and student feedback from that program was very good, with the majority of both parents and students reporting that that program helped them to feel more prepared for middle school. And I identified a couple parent comments that said it really improved their students' attitude towards entering middle school. Elementary Title I Summer School offered academic supports for students who were identified by our instructional coaches. This program served 168 students from all 8 Title I elementary schools. In this program, we offer low class sizes. We include a dual language immersion strand for our DLI students, and students receive a strong literacy and math focus. This year, our students at Title I Summer School demonstrated growth in literacy benchmarks at each grade level, which was very exciting. We also provided an extended day option. Title I Summer School is a half-day academic program. We know that for many families, it's a barrier if their student can only attend in the morning, and families need to have that continuity of a full day. A new summer reading pilot program emerged this year. We provided 24 students one-on-one tutoring, high interest books, and work time on an adaptive reading program. This program had a lot of success. Students who attended 90% of their sessions showed aggressive growth in reading according to their FastBridge assessments. And this program was offered at our other summer program sites, so we were able to use the infrastructure of our other summer programs to be able to offer something additional. Extended school year and recovery services provide skill maintenance, learning recovery, and transition programs for our students that experience disability and are at risk of skill regression. This year, 83 students participated in ESY, and 100% of those students maintained skills identified on their IEP. CARE is our full day enrichment program for elementary students. We offered this program out of 3 site locations serving 419 elementary students. This program is fee-based. We offer scholarships and emergency placements for families that need it. This past summer, CARE doubled the number of scholarships offered from the previous summer. And as you can see, this year was a Summer Olympics year, and that was one of our weekly themes for CARE. Students were able to participate in Olympic events, learn about countries around the world, and of course, have a torch ceremony. Right. Kindergarten exploration had a lot of growth this year. It's very exciting that we were able to host 2 classrooms for kindergarten exploration in all 18 elementary schools. This led to a huge increase in participation with 552 students participating in this program that provides supports for our incoming kindergarten students. This program did experience a wait list at some locations, and priority was given to students without preschool experience, bilingual students, and students with disabilities. This program also had strong parent participation with over 100 families attending online classes that were offered in both Spanish and English, giving our families information about the kindergarten transition. We couldn't do summer without our community partners. Each year we work with small businesses, nonprofits, government agencies to be able to expand our offerings for students. And this is just a small selection of the community partners that brought those experiences to our middle school students, that did special events for elementary students, and offered things to high school as well. We know that our students maintain vital connections to basic services through our schools every day. And summer programming allows us to offer some continuity of those services throughout the year. This summer, we had dental health screenings through our partnership with Neighborhood Health Center. These screenings were expanded this summer, serving 135 students. And that also included 8 urgent dental care referrals, all of whom were able to receive treatment. We served 18,283 meals this year. We know that food access is important to student success. And all of our programs had access to mental health and therapy referrals through Stronger Oregon. There are, of course, some challenges with putting together our summer learning programs. One of them is that lack of reliable and stable state funding targeted for summer programs. It's difficult to plan when you aren't certain if the funding will be available. It's also challenging to fill our schools during the summertime. Our maintenance crews and custodians rely on that time to get schools ready for the school year. And so it can be a logistical challenge to turn around and open that school right back up. And that goes along with workforce availability. At times, we are limited in what we can offer by the staff that we can find. The staff members that work summer learning are doing so voluntarily. They sign up to work during the summertime to be there for students. When we have that magical day in June, when it's the last day of school and everyone says farewell, there is a large group of teachers, paraprofessionals, nutrition services workers, bus drivers, administrators, and more that turn around about a week later and welcome students back into buildings so that we're able to provide these programs. And I'll open it up for questions.
Wow. All I can say is wow, because of just this amazing report and everything that you do, Natalie, and your team in like you said, like keeping our kids fed over the summer, not turning anyone away, providing so much enrichment for these kiddos. It's just amazing. So thank you. I'm going to turn it over to my board if board members have specific questions or comments, but I don't have any. I just want to, again, thank you for your incredible work, and also want to echo the lack of stable funding, particularly for this. And it's top of mind for all of us as we go down to Salem and advocate with our legislators on how important it is to continue funding this. So, okay, yes, Director Wachter.
I know it's 9 o'clock, but that was amazing. I'm just so overjoyed with what our school district does for our community, and you're really leading out in such wonderful ways, Natalie. So why did 44 districts get it? And that's my quick question. I won't ask any follow-ups, but why 44 and we weren't selected? What did we not have, or did we have too much of?
Yeah. So Oregon Department of Education came up with an algorithm that was meant to identify districts and some charter schools as well that had very high percentages of historically underserved students. And unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of public information on that algorithm and kind of how it went together. But we ended up about 16th on what they called a wait list for funding. And not surprisingly, there were not 16 districts that turned down funding.
Thank you for that explanation. Director Bauer?
I'll try to make it really quick, but the variety and the levels that you offered is amazing. And that tells me that you know our community. And I know that your office is in Wichita, so you're very connected. So thank you for that. But what sources of funding, I looked here, I might have missed it. Did you use? Because you increased 20%. I guess my worry is that maybe, we won't be able to, keep doing that. There's limits to our budget. And so, but I'll stop and you can answer that question.
Yeah. So when we plan for summer learning, we're looking at such a broad variety of funding streams, including 21st Century Grant, SIA, Measure 98, special education identified funding. And we work to kind of maximize what we have and see where we can braid things, where we can be efficient and offer two things for the price of one. And I've probably missed some other funding streams in that accounting because it's really quite complex.
Well, thank you though for putting that all together. Great program.
Yes, Vice Chair Benaloga.
Yes, thank you so much, Natalie. What an amazing summer our kids get to have because of all of the work. I do have a question because, of course, we don't have enough funding for every student who is interested to be able to be there. So what resources do we provide to our families, especially those elementary and maybe middle school parents that maybe their student isn't going to be able to participate? What resources do we have available for our families for summertime?
Each year, we do work to compile kind of a summer resource guide that families have available that includes our parks and recreation opportunities and other low cost and affordable options for families. Certainly, I think our families would say that's still not quite enough, but we work to identify options.
Oh, excellent. And we all know that it's not for lack of, we want every kid to have summer programming that wants to have it, but it's definitely, of course, a lack of funding at the very top. But thank you so much for working on resources for families that are not able to participate. Thank you.
Director McVeigh.
So I love everything early learning. So I'll be anxious. It's too early, no pun intended, to know about kindergarten readiness, but I'll be anxious to hear from kindergarten teachers on, what they've noticed and maybe in the first half of the year.
Yeah. Jen Burkhart did some wonderful work on that kindergarten exploration expansion. So it will be exciting to see that show up in that data with the support of those assessment teams.
And it might just be lack of fear, right? Or, might not have any data, but the teachers will know if they felt something different in the classroom.
Yeah, I think what I would add is
Less accidents.
it's just like that fifth and sixth. I mean, there's so much about leveling transitions. And what we really notice is when our little ones come in for the first day of kindergarten, it really isn't the first day because so many of them have a little bit of confidence, have a little bit of oomph, just knowing that they already know where the playground is and where to go for the front office or getting a Band-Aid. It's just all the little things that we sometimes minimize, but it's a big deal. It's a big deal to them.
Well, thank you so much. And I don't think Director Kemp has any questions. I just want to acknowledge that he's still participating. But he's there. Well, thank you so much again, Natalie, again, for your incredible work on this and your presentation and your team's work. So thank you. And Dr. Dibley as well. So we are going to start concluding the night. And before we officially end, I want to just say a few things. So for folks who are not aware, today is World Mental Health Day. Every year on October 10th, World Mental Health Day is to raise awareness about mental health all around the world and to mobilize efforts to support those experiencing mental health issues. And this is started by the World Health Organization since 2013. And I just want to read this quote because it is a really good reminder for me sometimes when I'm also personally having a bad day or I turn my bad day into being angry at someone or like assuming things about people. So I just want to end the night with this quote as a gentle reminder. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about, so be kind always. And that was by Brad Meltzer, who is an American author. So with that, it is now 9:08 p.m. and this public meeting of the North Clackamas School District Board of Directors is adjourned.